Hello, this is Philip Carr-Gomm. This is Tea with the Druid 137. Welcome to you. Welcome, Jamie from New York. Hi. It's great to be here again after a break of about 8 weeks. It's fantastic to be back. Let's just wait and see more Keith from Vancouver. That's great. Lisa and Amanda on Facebook. That's great. It's all working. Hi. So welcome to you if you're watching live, and welcome if you're watching a recording, as many people do. This is Tea with the Druid, number 137, brought to you by the Order of Bards, Ovates and Druids. So I've had a break from doing this for a couple of months, and it's been wonderful, but I've also missed being with you. I've missed doing these tea sessions, because there's always a lovely feeling of being together, even though any sane person would say, well, you're not, you're in a room all on your own. But I do feel together with you because I can see you all streaming up on the right hand side of the screen here, and I know that at this exact moment, in all these different houses and apartments around the world, we're together. We're focused on the same thing. So welcome. And thank you to Ema and to Dave the Bard and to Gail for their stories and for doing Tea with the Druid while I've been away. It's been great. So I don't know how you're feeling. Do feel free to tell me how you're feeling. It'd be good to hear. I'm actually feeling really happy because I'm back, and we're in the circle together. Life has become so odd, so strange in this world today, that to meet together with like-minded folk, to people with whom one resonates, as it were, gives a feeling of comfort and warmth and happiness. The world can be a very painful and hostile and difficult place, but it can also be wonderful and beautiful. And today in Lewis, the sun has shone, and I risked my life by having an early supper in a very pretty pub garden just up the road here, filled with flowers, and it felt good, that little touch of so-called normality and to be with others. And of course, now it's the time of Lunasa, Lammas, in the Northern Hemisphere. And I'm just going to scroll up to see you all there. Oh, yeah, that's great. You've had a beautiful Lunasa ritual in your garden, says Sean. Yeah, Sean. Yes, it's Lunasa time in the Northern Hemisphere, the time of harvest. In the Southern Hemisphere, if you happen to be there, I can see Pamela down in... Oh, no, you're in Austria. I thought you were in Australia. Sorry, Pam. Those of you in the Southern Hemisphere, it's the time of Imbolc, the time of planting seeds, of the time of the promise of spring. Now it's the time of harvest here. And what comes to me is this question, what is the harvest of this time? I asked this question as I sat here quietly before coming on air, and a very interesting stream of thoughts came to me, which I'd like to share with you. Because when I asked that question, what is the harvest of this time? The answer I received was that the harvest is of awareness. Now, this seems strange when the harvest can seem perhaps bitter. If we think about everything that's happening in the world, how could one say that it's of awareness? But I think what this crisis has done, as in fact, I suppose every crisis does, what the crisis of the pandemic has done for us is it's brought an intense amount of awareness at a number of levels. It's made us aware of what we're doing to the realm of the animals. It's because this pandemic has arisen because of the way we've treated the animal world, because of the erosion of their habitats. And the more we erode animal habitats, the more there's going to be this cross whatever the word is, movement of viruses from the animal world into the human world. And more people are becoming aware of the damage we're doing to the environment and to the animal world. I think many of us have become more aware of how nature works. I wasn't aware of that detail, for instance, about the way in which the erosion of natural habitats creates this problem of disease amongst human beings. And whilst it's immensely depressing for the news to be dominated by the coronavirus situation, there's a way in which many of us are becoming sort of amateur scientists because there's so much scientific information being shared. So a lot of us are learning about how viruses work, and just sharing information and learning information about it. Learning about mental health, a far greater increase of awareness of mental health and social issues, the kind of spotlight that is now on social issues, economic issues, and so on. And then at another level, at a more emotional level, if you like, at more of a gut level, there's a greater awareness of our vulnerability as individuals, but also as societies, and indeed as an entire race of humanity. And becoming aware of our vulnerabilities isn't comfortable. It's something that, we naturally avoid. And yet, for those of us who have done some work in opening up to our vulnerability, we know that in the end, it is a good work. In the end, it is good to sense one's vulnerability. And in fact, the reverse, the denial of our vulnerability, creates the kind of gung-ho, macho, aggressive attitude towards life that has resulted in so many of the problems that we have in the world today. So whilst it can make us feel uncomfortable, weaker, depressed, upset, and so on, actually it is the pathway and the doorway to being more compassionate towards ourselves and others. And of course, it's made us more aware of our mortality. And again, an awareness of our mortality, whilst being not a pleasant thing perhaps to be made more aware of, again, it's part of the existential human condition. And in fact, that's why every spirituality and religion has engaged with the question of mortality at the center of its kind of understanding, because this great mystery of what are we doing here and why are we going? Why are we coming and why are we going? These two big questions. And what do we do while we're here? And then all this, so we've talked in a way about quite intellectual things that we become more aware of, then of kind of gut feelings and emotional things. But then there's the really physical awareness we have, which I think we can't underestimate, is an awareness of our boundaries. All this business of social distancing, which in the beginning, I know in New Zealand, they tried to combat the use of that term. And then the World Health Organization tried to combat the use of that term. But in the end, I think everybody gave up. And the term social distancing has been used. But what WHO and New Zealand tried to do was to use the term physical distancing, because you don't have to socially distance. We're socially engaging with each other now, all those Zoom and FaceTime and Skype calls, but you're socially engaging with people. And just because you're physically distant doesn't mean to say you're socially distant. So it's a misnomer. But all this awareness of our social, or better termed physical distance, makes us more aware of who we are. Again, if as I'm walking down the street, I don't just plow ahead, but I have to be sensitive to somebody else and sort of sense what is an appropriate distance between me, and then to move around. And one of the things I guess I'm sure you've all experienced is the way as lockdown started to ease, it actually became harder. There was a sort of safety in lockdown because certainly, where we were living and so on, people were very responsible, and people would keep apart. And then as lockdown has eased, there's been a whole range of behaviours. If you hop into the local town here in Brighton, people will just, virtually brush past you. Stephanie and I go for a walk every day out in the country, and most people, as you approach them on a footpath, most people will do the kind of the decent thing, and you'll nod or say hello or exchange a few words and separate and move on. But sometimes you'll see somebody, and it's kind of, you almost sense it in their eyes or their demeanor. They don't give a damn, they don't care, and they'll just keep going at you like that. And you get out of the way, unless you can't. Sometimes on footpaths you can't because of the foliage or whatever. James Turner says here, so I know that the musicians are suffering mentally. There's a lot of suffering. So what I'm doing here is looking at awareness. That what I'm saying is that this has made us more aware at a physical level of our boundaries. And then, of course, all this stuff around, how far does a sneeze travel? And again, the other thing is, joggers. I don't know if you've had that, but in the beginning, we used to get really annoyed with the fact that joggers seem to have this thing, they've got the music in their ears and they just would plow right past you, And Stephanie did something, I'm not good at challenging people, but we were walking along in Brighton like that, and some kids were walking towards us. And Steph just put her arms out like that. So they had to stop and sort of walk around her, but otherwise they would have just done that. So it's bringing awareness, not to everybody, like some people maybe are just refusing to wake up, but a lot of people are, I think, are becoming more aware. And I think, especially for those of us in the spiritual world, working on spirituality and whose passion is personal development, spiritual development, we naturally equate awareness with positivity, with happiness, and with pleasure. The reason why I cultivate awareness is because it brings me pleasure, if you like. I like to be more and more aware. So self-awareness is what I try to cultivate. But awareness isn't really about pleasure or happiness or even pain. Awareness is about awareness. And some awareness can result in painful feelings or painful realizations. When you become more self-aware and you realize the mistakes you've made in your life, that's not going to bring you pleasure. That's not going to make you happy. It's going to make you more aware. You need to take that on board. So there isn't a total linkage between pleasure and awareness. So I think that's kind of helpful to realize. When I realized that was helpful to me, because I think almost without thinking about it too much, I linked pleasure and increased awareness together. But I think we can quite easily unlink them and say that it may well result in, and I believe the end result of more self-awareness is more pleasure, if you like, more happiness, more feelings of fulfillment. But along the way, it's not necessarily linked together at all. And of course, that's why people overdrink and take drugs, is to become less. Some people take drugs to become more self-aware. That's another whole area and another whole discussion. But a lot of drug taking and drinking is to become less self-aware because the awareness is too painful. So where did my thoughts take me as I followed this train of thoughts? It was so recent. Let's have a look. Yes. Now here's the cusp I feel we've got to, in a way, which is this kind of increased sensitivity and awareness that I suspect a lot of us are feeling. The downside or the difficulty or the challenge or the risk is that it can lead to paranoia or OCD behavior, obsessive compulsive behavior, and increased levels of anxiety. One of the interesting things I think that happened was that in the lockdown, some people experienced a reduction in their anxiety. People found they weren't needing to take their antidepressants, that they were actually feeling safe, because there was something in the strict lockdown period, whilst it may have been very uncomfortable for many of us, you knew where you stood. In the phase we've gone into now, the boundaries aren't quite so clear. And so for some people, that's generated more anxiety, ironically or paradoxically, coming out of lockdown than actually being in lockdown. So how do we deal with all this? Well, one of the reasons why I love nature-based spirituality and spirituality in general, and the whole task of self-development in general, is that for me, it offers an answer to all these kinds of questions. And it's, for me, spiritual teachings and spiritual practice at times like this are so valuable because they connect us to the source of being, the source deep inside that is free, that is limitless, that is not confined, that no lockdown can ever restrain. And that's the value in working spiritually, I believe. Let's just do this now. Let's go to a place where we're free, just for a few moments. So if you feel up for this, we're just going to do a meditation just for a few minutes, literally a few minutes, where you might find it easier to close your eyes to better concentrate on yourself. And you can just be fully aware of being seated in front of the screen, wherever you are. But at the same time, you can perhaps allow your sense of the screen and the room you're in just to fade a little, and just to allow your imagination to feel as if you're settling in to the most beautiful spot in the countryside. Druids like to imagine being in a sacred grove, a clearing in the forest, perhaps in the lovely setting sun of evening. And just follow your awareness in your body down to where you feel gravity, or the sort of center of your being, somewhere down in the center of your body and your being. Might be in your tummy, more towards the base of the spine. Just feel where the center of your being is, where the center of gravity is in your body now. Taking a deep breath, connecting with this sense of gravity. Hold for a moment, and then breathe out fully and deeply. And as you breathe out fully and deeply, you allow yourself to be aware of being seated on the ground. You feel the earth beneath you. And you feel the energy of the earth, full of life, the rocks, the soil, the minerals, the moisture in the earth, the grasses, all the creatures in the earth. And you feel yourself slowing down to the natural rhythm of the earth, its healing energy rising up into you. You sense now the trees around you, their roots deep in the soil, their trunks stretching up into the sky. And you can smell the trees. You breathe in the scent of the trees deep into your body. And you sense the protection and the power of these trees. And you sense the energy of the sky above you. And you breathe in the energy of the sky, this clear, bright energy that flows into your being. And as you breathe in, you feel the energy of the sky meeting the energy of the earth within the center of yourself. And then gradually you just open to the sense of your body sitting here, sitting in this sacred grove, but just allowing the sacred grove to gently fade, but aware of the blessing of your body, of the fact that your body is part of the natural world. There's no separation between you and nature, between any of us and the natural world, because our body is part of the natural world. The natural world is right here. We don't even have to go to a park or sit in a garden. It's always with us, within our own being. So let's give thanks for the natural environment of our body, for the world of nature that is literally at our fingertips, within our hands and arms, our torso, our legs, our feet, our heads. This is the natural world, and it's a part of us. And gradually aware of being seated in front of the computer or the tablet or the screen, you open your eyes, fully present, here and now, finishing this meditation. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. It's just lovely to read your comments here. Bruna, it's lovely to read your comment there. That's just wonderful. And there's the Punisher's Batcave podcast, Gurgi. Your podcast sounds very interesting and strange. Thank you for being here. And I'm going to finish now because to tell you the truth, I would like to carry on being with you for ages and ages and ages. And I've always felt this way ever since I started doing the teas, but it's always been really clear to me that these teas need to be short. They need to be around 20 minutes, something like that. That's what they need to be. But I'm toying with the idea of also doing a longer show. I know so many artists and writers and musicians and poets, so many interesting people who I've got to know through Druidry and through other interests over the years, that I just would love to interview them and talk to them about their books and their work. I'm thinking of doing that, so I might just try doing that, on a Thursday evening or Friday evening or something like that, and a longer form of broadcasts. So if that would be of interest to you, let me know. And in the meanwhile, I'm going to carry on doing something. When I stopped, I handed over the role of chosen chief of the Order of Bards, Ovates and Druids to Emer on the 5th of June, and I had 2 months holiday, which was just lovely. Very little screen time. That was a great break. And then I just worked with a small group of people who are doing a sophrology course. Sophrology is a way of working with a kind of embodied spirituality that meshes beautifully with Druidry and with other disciplines. And I developed an online course for that. And about 20 of us have been going through it. And so every day I would just check in with everybody as a group. So I'm still doing that. And if anybody wants to join us on that quest, you're very, very welcome. You'll see a URL in this description of it. But in the meantime, have a lovely evening or morning if you're on the other side of the world. And I'll see you next week. And lots of love, many blessings, and have a great week. Okay, bye.